It all began with the most unexpected sight, a small German Shepherd puppy running straight toward a police officer for help. What happened after that would leave everyone watching deeply moved. At first, it was supposed to be just another ordinary day on patrol. The streets were calm, the morning routine unfolding like any other shift. Nothing unusual seemed to be happening, until, out of nowhere, a tiny ball of fur appeared in the distance. The little dog was clumsy on his paws, his ears, still soft and floppy, and his steps uneven as he stumbled forward with determination. His tail wagged furiously, as though he had spotted exactly what he had been looking for all along. Without hesitation, the puppy rushed directly toward Officer Daniel Carter, as if begging him for help, protection, or maybe even love. Startled, but curious, Daniel bent down, trying to understand why this helpless little creature had chosen him, out of all the people on the street. The puppy pressed against him without fear, his small body trembling yet full of trust. And in that moment, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He didn't know it yet, but what followed would turn this simple encounter into a memory he would carry for the rest of his life. This was not going to be an ordinary patrol anymore. This was going to be a story about loyalty, heartbreak, and love in its purest form, the kind of love that changes people. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments below. And if you believe in the bond between humans and animals, don't forget to hit that like button. Because trust me, this one will touch your heart. Seattle, the city where all of this takes place, is often painted in shades of gray. It's famous for its endless drizzle, misty mornings, and a waterfront alive with seagulls and ferries. But beneath the rain, Seattle is also a place where animals are loved deeply. Families take their dogs out for long walks in every park. Children chase after wagging tails, and cats watch curiously from windows high above the streets. Yet, as heartwarming as that sounds, there is another side to the truth. Behind the cozy neighborhoods and smiling pet owners lies a heartbreaking reality. Every single year, countless animals are abandoned or left to survive alone. Some are fortunate enough to be reunited with their families quickly. Others wander the streets hungry and confused, hoping that someone kind will stop to help. And for the less fortunate, life ends in crowded shelters where only a few lucky ones are chosen and given a second chance. Most animals don't get to pick their destiny. Their lives are decided by the choices of humans and the kindness or cruelty they encounter. But every so often, something extraordinary happens. A story unfolds that feels almost like fate, a story where it seems the animal chooses the human, and not the other way around. That is exactly what was about to happen here. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning that should have been unremarkable. But for one man, it would be unforgettable. His name was Daniel Carter, a police officer dedicated to serving the people of Seattle. That very day had already started beautifully for Daniel. The first golden light of dawn had barely reached through the curtains when he woke, not to the harsh buzz of an alarm clock, but to the sweet voices of his wife and children. They were standing by his bed, their hands holding a small cake with flickering candles, their voices singing "Happy Birthday" with all the joy their little hearts could carry. The look on Daniel's face said everything. He was moved beyond words. His children proudly handed him handmade cards filled with colorful scribbles, uneven letters, and drawings only a child's imagination could create. His wife leaned in, kissed his cheek softly, and whispered that he deserved every happiness on this special day. After breakfast, Daniel slipped into his crisp police uniform and headed to work. But the surprises were far from over. As soon as he stepped into the precinct, his fellow officers welcomed him with warm laughter, firm handshakes, and birthday greetings. On his desk sat a decorated box filled with small gifts from his colleagues. A quiet but powerful reminder of how much he meant to his team. Surrounded by love from both his family and his friends, Daniel couldn't have asked for a better start to his day. He had no reason to expect anything more. After the morning celebrations, it was time to get back to duty. Daniel and his partner, Officer Harris, climbed into their patrol car to begin their shift. The car rolled steadily through Seattle's quiet streets until they reached Dexter Street, a neighborhood filled with small shops and apartment buildings. They decided to park and continue their watch on foot, as they often did. The sidewalks were calm, the kind of calm Daniel had grown used to, until something unusual caught his attention. A few pedestrians had paused mid-step. They were pointing, smiling warmly, and looking directly behind him as if they knew something Daniel didn't. Confused, he turned, and that's when he saw him. A small German Shepherd puppy, no older than a few months, was bounding toward him with clumsy but determined steps. His soft fur glowed in the morning light. His ears flopped adorably as he ran, and his bright eyes carried a sparkle of hope. Daniel froze for a moment, stunned by the sight. The pup didn't hesitate for even a second. He ran straight into Daniel's legs, wagging his tail wildly, and leapt up as if he had finally found the person he had been searching for. His little whimpers and playful barks made it clear. He wasn't just asking for help, he was choosing Daniel. Crouching down, Daniel stretched out his hand. The puppy pressed into his touch instantly, trusting him as if they had always known each other. That simple act stirred something powerful in Daniel's chest. He quickly noticed that the pup wore no collar, no tag, nothing to show where he belonged. Daniel glanced around the street, hoping someone might appear to claim the dog, but no one came forward. From the puppy's healthy coat and bright eyes, it seemed he hadn't been alone for long. But even so, the idea of such a small, helpless creature trying to survive out here alone shook Daniel deeply. He felt protective, connected, almost as if fate had placed this little shepherd directly in his path. Daniel gently scooped the puppy into his arms. To his surprise, the pup relaxed instantly, curling against his chest as though he had finally found safety. Daniel held him close as he walked back toward the patrol car, the tiny heartbeat against his uniform stirring an emotion he couldn't quite explain. When they reached the car, Officer Harris looked up from her coffee and raised an eyebrow with a grin. "Well, well, Daniel," she said playfully. "What's this you've got there?" Daniel stroked the pup's fur and replied, "Found him on the street, no collar, no tag. He looks lost. After our shift, I'll take him to the rescue shelter." Harris chuckled and shook her head. "Lost or not, this little guy looks like he already found his best friend." The puppy gave a sharp, happy bark, almost as if he understood. Harris laughed, quickly pulling out her phone to snap photos and record a short video as the pup licked Daniel's cheek with boundless energy. Within minutes, the video went online, and the response was instant. Comments poured in, filled with hearts and questions. Who was this adorable puppy? What would happen to him? The internet had already fallen in love. Harris promised to keep everyone updated. Then she looked at Daniel and said, "He needs a name." Daniel glanced down at the pup, whose bright eyes locked on his. After a thoughtful pause, he whispered, "How about Lucky? Because finding each other today feels like pure luck." Almost immediately, the puppy barked again and wagged his tail with excitement, as if accepting his new name with pride. The rest of the shift passed more quickly than usual. Nothing major happened on the streets, no emergencies were called in, but the day was far from ordinary. Daniel and Harris both began calling the puppy by his new name, Lucky, and each time they did, the pup perked up and answered with his wagging tail. It was clear he wasn't just a stray, he was a soul searching for where he belonged. But as their shift neared its end, Daniel felt a heavy lump in his throat. The thought of leaving Lucky behind was harder than he expected. And that was when Lucky's behavior changed. Instead of calmly trotting beside them, he darted around the patrol car, circling it again and again, barking softly as if pleading not to be left behind. His movements weren't random. They carried urgency, a desperate kind of energy. His tail wagged, but his eyes held something more. A message Daniel couldn't ignore. He crouched down, torn between duty and heart. The silence stretched long, broken only by the sound of Lucky's paws on the pavement. Finally, Daniel whispered, softly, "All right, buddy." He opened the passenger door, and before he could even finish the thought, Lucky leapt inside with ease, as if he knew this was where he belonged. He circled once, then settled down comfortably on the seat, resting his head against the cushion with calm trust. The sight nearly broke Daniel. It was as if Lucky had been riding in that spot his whole life. Sliding into the driver's seat, Daniel met the puppy's gaze one more time. In those bright, trusting eyes, he realized the truth. Saying goodbye to this pup would not be as easy as he thought. Back at the precinct, Lucky instantly became the center of attention. A few officers gathered around, laughing as he wagged his tail and pawed playfully at their boots. Someone tossed a crumpled paper ball across the room, and Lucky dashed after it with surprising speed, returning proudly with it clutched in his little mouth. The pup's natural charm was undeniable, and for a brief moment, Daniel allowed himself to smile, watching how easily Lucky brought joy to everyone around him. But duty was calling. Daniel and Harris slipped away to the records room, where the air was quieter, heavier. They logged into the system, searching through lost pet reports, scanning for any match. Daniel's hope flickered faintly. Maybe Lai's family was looking for him. Maybe he wasn't alone after all. Then the truth appeared on the screen. Stark and cold. Lucky hadn't been reported lost. The information tied to his microchip revealed something far worse. He had been abandoned. His previous owners had given him up, leaving him with no one to claim him, no one to come searching. Daniel stared at the report in silence, his jaw tightening, his chest ached with the weight of it. He remembered the way Lucky had bounded toward him on Dexter Street, full of trust and joy. That trust had been misplaced before, betrayed by those who should have protected him. The thought made Daniel's throat burn. This little guy deserved better, Harris muttered, breaking the silence. Daniel only nodded, afraid that if he spoke, his voice would crack. Protocol was clear. Lucky couldn't simply stay at the precinct. As much as Daniel's heart wanted otherwise, he knew he had to take the puppy to a licensed shelter where he would receive proper care and hopefully find a permanent home. When Daniel walked back into the common room, Lucky perked up instantly, ears twitching, tail thumping against the floor. The puppy bounded over, pawing at his boots as though to say, "Where are we going next?" Daniel bent down, scooping him up carefully. He pressed his face briefly against Lai's fur, inhaling that sweet puppy scent, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, buddy." Back in the patrol car, the mood had shifted. Earlier, Lucky had barked happily, climbing across the seat to look out the window. Now, he sat quietly in the passenger seat, head resting on the cushion, his dark eyes watching Daniel with a look that pierced straight through him. It was as though Lucky knew. Every turn of the wheel, every passing block on the way to the shelter, Daniel felt the weight of his decision pressing harder against his chest. He told himself it was the right thing to do, but in that moment, it felt like the hardest choice he had ever made. When they finally pulled into the parking lot, Daniel parked the car and sat still for a moment, unable to move. Lucky pressed his small nose against the window, letting out a faint whine, as though he already understood what awaited inside. Taking a deep breath, Daniel opened the door and lifted Lucky into his arms. The pup nestled close to his chest, not resisting, simply trusting him the way he had all day. Daniel could feel the steady beat of the little heart against his uniform, and each step toward the shelter entrance felt heavier than the last. Inside, the shelter staff greeted them warmly. Their eyes lit up the moment they saw Lucky. "What a sweetheart," one of the staff members said, reaching out to scratch under Heshin. Another bent down to rub his ears. Lai's tail wagged gently in response, but it was half-hearted. His eyes kept darting back to Daniel, watching his every movement, unwilling to break the invisible line that connected them. Daniel tried to smile, but his chest tightened. At the reception desk, He began filling out the intake forms. His hand trembled slightly as he signed his name, the weight of each letter pressing down on him. Behind him, he heard a faint whimper. He didn't even need to turn around to know it was Lucky, crying softly as though he sensed what was happening. When the staff placed Lucky gently into a kennel, the pup immediately pressed himself against the bars, his ears drooping, his gaze locked on Daniel. The sound of his whine pierced the officer's heart. Daniel crouched down, pressing his hand against the cold metal. Lucky pushed his nose through the gap, licking his fingers desperately. Daniel's throat tightened. His eyes burned as he whispered, "You'll be safe here, buddy. I promise." But as he stood and turned toward the exit, his steps felt heavier than ever before. Though he told himself he was doing the right thing, Daniel couldn't shake the ache in his chest. He had only known Lucky for a few short hours, yet somehow leaving him behind felt like abandoning a lifelong friend. That night, Daniel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying every moment of the day. The image of Lucky pressing his small nose against the kennel bars, eyes filled with longing, wouldn't leave him. Sleep refused to come. Each time Daniel closed his eyes, he heard Lai's soft whimper in the back of his mind. He wondered if the pup was scared if he was crying alone in the shelter, wondering why the man he trusted had walked away. Daniel turned over, but the ache in his chest only grew heavier. By the time morning light broke through the blinds, he knew there was only one thing he could do. The very next morning, Daniel drove back to the shelter, his heart pounding with both excitement and fear. When he arrived, the shelter staff greeted him with knowing smiles. They didn't need to ask why he was there. One of them simply said, "He's been waiting for you." As they led Daniel to the kennel, Themament was almost too much to bear. The second Lucky saw him, the little shepherd's ears perked up. He sprang to his feet, tail wagging so hard it rattled his whole body. His bark was full of joy, his paws scratching eagerly at the bars. The staff opened the gate, and Lucky bolted straight into Daniel's arms, licking his face, whining and yelping with pure happiness. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he held the pup close, whispering, "I'm so sorry I left you, but I'm here now. You're coming home, Lucky." The adoption papers were signed that very afternoon. Driving home with Lucky curled up in the passenger seat, Daniel felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The puppy looked out the window for Amament, then leaned against Daniel's arm, already trusting that this was where he belonged. Back at home, Lucky was welcomed with squeals of joy from Daniel's children and gentle affection from his wife. At the precinct, he quickly became the team's beloved mascot, a symbol of loyalty and resilience. For Daniel, Lucky was more than just a dog. He was the best birthday gift life had ever given him, a reminder that sometimes fate delivers exactly what we need, wrapped not in paper or ribbons, but in fur, love, and the unspoken promise of a lifelong bond.